Hey, Leo here for Actualized.org. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about setting proper expectations for success. This episode here is a cornerstone of success. If you don't understand this topic about setting proper expectations, I guarantee you're going to be frustrated and you're not going to be able to succeed in many areas in your life, including self-actualization work and enlightenment work. It's amazing how much expectations matter. They affect your ability to follow through and your ability to succeed. Just having the wrong expectations can spell the difference between success and failure. Do you know what the most common failure point is for, I would say, every human being on earth who has ever undertaken any kind of project or endeavor? Why did they fail? Because they underestimate the time, energy, cost, and emotional labor that their project or endeavor requires to be actualized. It's just that simple. Just having the wrong idea about the timeline of your project, whether you're building a house or you're building a business or you're trying to get enlightened or you're trying to make money or you're entering a new relationship or you're trying to raise your kids or you're trying to make your marriage succeed. Why do you fail in all those things? Because you underestimate the time, energy, cost, and emotional labor involved. And consistently what I see in people and what I see in myself, so of course I'm talking about from my own direct experience, and if you validate what I'm talking about in this episode against your direct experience, you'll start to see that everything I'm saying here is very valid. What we usually do is we expect something for nothing. We expect big growth, big life changes, big paydays, big business successes, big military victories, amazing relationships with our kids. We expect all this for nothing. And then we wonder why we don't get it. Well, it's because there's a cost associated with all these things. And especially, I want you to become aware that if you want something that's rare and valuable, that is not widespread through society, for example, high quality marriages, that's a rare and valuable thing. Or you want a business that sustains itself and pays you a passive income so you can travel around the world and work remotely. That's a rare and valuable thing. You don't see every guy on the street with that kind of thing. That immediately should tell you that there is a pretty heavy cost involved with creating that situation in your life. And then it's going to be up to you to investigate what that cost is and whether you are willing to pay that cost. And that's something that people very naively just don't do. I mean, this is just such basic stuff. It's such common sense stuff that I hesitate to even call it foundational, but I mean, it is foundational because without this, you can't have any success. The consequences of wrong expectations are that you get easily frustrated with your project and your progress, and therefore you quit prematurely. Another consequence is that you're never able to really accomplish anything in your life, nothing big. Do you notice that pattern in yourself where you try to do something big with your life, but it just never happens, and then you just fall back down to your default position? And then maybe you look back through history and you see, oh, this is a trend. I keep failing to make big things happen in my life. Well, this is probably why. Probably because of your expectations. I mean, there's other factors, of course. This is not the only factor, but it is a very basic and important factor that I see people struggling with. So if you're struggling with success, take everything I hear that I'm saying very seriously. So let's just give you a couple of examples to highlight the absurdity of some expectations that people have about things. So, for example, what if I came to you and I said, hey, I expect to become a doctor. And you say, okay, great, what's your plan? And I say, I'm going to become a doctor in 1 year. You would laugh at me. You would already be able to predict that I would fail, because my expectation is so out of whack with the reality of the situation of becoming a doctor. The reality is that if you want to become a doctor, you're going to spend a good 8 years in medical school. And that's just to get to starting to do your residencies, doing your rounds. And I mean, that's just to get to the very newbie phases of being a doctor. So that's, you're off by a factor of 8. Now, when your estimates are off by a factor of 8, chances of catastrophic failure are very high, above 90%. What if I came to you saying that I expect to build a 100-story skyscraper all by myself? And you say, what do you mean all by yourself? Don't you have a team of people and workers? No, it's just going to be me. I'm going to build the whole thing. You see, that's never going to work. I already failed with that expectation, because what I should have done is I should have done my research and realized, how many man hours does it take to build a 100-story skyscraper? I don't know. I haven't done the research, but I can tell you it would be longer than a human lifetime. So that's a project that's impossible to complete by yourself. Impossible. There's no way you can do that. And it's not just a factor of not enough time, but also just to lift those heavy beams and to put them in place requires at least 2 or 3 or a team of people work in that. You can't do that as a solo human being. What if I came to you and I said that I expect to be an amazing world-class piano player in 1 year of practice? Again, you would just dismiss me as a total noob. I have no chance of succeeding in that. And I would get very frustrated with my practice if I expected to play the piano as good as the greatest world masters. Because see, I would be 6 months into my process of becoming a master pianist. I would be playing the piano. I would be comparing myself to Mozart and Beethoven and the greatest piano players of all time, or composers or whatever. And then of course, I would be comparing myself and I'd be saying, I'm not even close to that. And I would become so demoralized that I would just quit. I probably quit less than a month into the whole process. What about expecting to turn a profit in your business in under 1 year if you're starting a new business? That's also a very ridiculous expectation, if you expect that. Some people, they start a business and then they say, oh, well, my business is going to turn profitable in a year. So because of that, I'm gonna buy a bigger house. I'm gonna take out a loan. I'm gonna get a new car. It's like they're already spending the money they're expecting to get. But of course, they're grossly underestimating how long it'll probably take them to really become profitable in their business. Usually by a factor of 3 or 5. It might take you 3 or 5 years to do that rather than 1. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a good idea to start a business. It just means you need some realistic expectations based on what's actually statistically common in the marketplace. I would bet you that if you did a statistical analysis on every single business ever started in the last 50 years, you would see that the average for a business to turn a profit was probably more than 3 years. And that should ring some alarm bells for you in your planning and in your strategizing if you're an entrepreneur starting a new business. What if you expect to become enlightened from going to one meditation retreat? Oh boy, you're in for a rude awakening there. It's not going to happen. What if you expect to master and understand all of life from having one enlightenment experience? Oh boy, you're also in for a rude awakening. You're going to be very disappointed. It's not going to happen. What if you're expecting to self-actualize from just sitting there watching all of my videos over and over and over again, as if watching my videos is really growing you, ignoring the part where I tell you that you need to do 1% theory to 99% action, and that all this stuff has to be embodied. You're also going to be very disappointed. You're going to be wondering, why am I not growing? Why do I know all this stuff, but then I'm so frustrated and depressed and I feel so bad about myself and I'm procrastinating all this. Yeah, of course. Of course, you were warned about that. What else could you have expected? Obviously, that's the case. If all you do is read books about how to disassemble car engines, that does not mean that you are qualified to actually disassemble and reassemble a car engine just from reading a book. The book is a good first step, but then you need lots of practice disassembling engines piece by piece, one at a time, probably starting from little engines, just taking apart one little part and then putting it back, and then take a second engine, two parts out, put them back, and then make sure it all works. And then you do that a bunch of times, and then you take a big engine, you do it once with the big engine, you probably fail a couple times on the big engine. You need somebody else to come fix your screw up for you. And then through that process, then you'll be qualified. No matter how many books you read, it won't be enough. Or let's say you're expecting to lose 50 pounds by your wedding time, which is a month from now or something, using some kind of gimmick like a diet pill. Of course you're going to fail. Of course. Because you're not really seriously thinking about the foundations of what it takes to become successful in anything in life. You're just skimming the surface of it. You're a dilettante. The expectations that you set determine your level of perseverance, which means when you will quit, how quickly you will quit. And of course, perseverance is one of the most important factors in how successful you become in any endeavor that you undertake and in your life as a whole. That's going to directly correlate to your ability to persevere. So if you want to really be able to stick with stuff and not to quit, you need to be able to set very realistic expectations. Because if you set unrealistic expectations, then you get blindsided by reality, blindsided by the marketplace, blindsided by your emotional reactions. You're going to quit because it's going to be so frustrating and demoralizing for you. And that's probably the biggest reason that people fail in life is because of this. Think of some time in your life where this is true for you. You could probably think of a dozen. And think of the times where you were able to succeed. Why did you succeed? It's probably because you had some realistic expectations. You really understood the significance and the challenge that was ahead of you, and you prepared yourself for that mentally. You put in the proper plans and strategies, and you were able to succeed. You avoided being blindsided by reality. Expectations also determine how you judge yourself and your progress. If you think you're not progressing fast enough in your meditation practice, with self-inquiry, with personal development, with your business or any other aspect like your life purpose, always you have to go back to the drawing board and ask, wait a minute, do I have the right expectations? Where should I be compared to where other people are usually in this sort of process? See, because if I'm trying to become a doctor and I start to judge myself for not being a very good doctor and I'm only 1 or 2 years into my medical practice, hey, that's totally normal. That's okay. But if I somehow get the wrong idea that it's not normal and then I'm behind the curve, then I'm going to quit. Or I'm going to think that there's something wrong with me. I'm going to start to judge myself. I'm going to start to feel guilty. I'm going to start asking myself, oh, why? Why am I such a bad doctor? Why am I not as good as everybody else out there? Why am I not able to succeed? Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I have bad genetics or whatever. When in fact, all it is just your expectations are out of whack. Expectations also, of course, determine how good you feel about your work. When you set unrealistic expectations, then you need to rush through your work because you have a cramped deadline. And then, of course, you don't have time to really savor your work. You start to cut corners in your work, and then you don't feel good about that. And you feel like you're still behind the curve. Expectations determine how much and how hard you practice. And practice is critical towards developing mastery in any domain of life. And expectations determine how you strategize and make plans. When you expect something to be easy and effortless and quick, you don't have the urge to put a proper strategy in place. You don't think through the logistics of the problem. Because, hey, it's just an easy thing. We'll just kind of fly by the seat of our pants and things will just work out. And you can see how disastrous this is, for example, in military situations. So military campaigns need to be very careful about their expectations, because when a general, for example, or a leader expects an easy victory over their opponents, well, oftentimes they get destroyed, just completely obliterated on the battlefield, because they haven't really thought through what it would take to invade a city or occupy a country. See? Well, you see this especially with many of the wars that the United States has started in the last century, with Korea, Vietnam, the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, all of this. You see the problems here, right? Is that people make it sound easy, and we get tempted into it because, like, oh, well, America has a very strong military. We can defeat everyone with our advanced technology. And in a sense, that's true, but it's also very deceptive. Because even though you have advanced technology, you can do a very quick blitz sort of invasion. Okay, fine, you can blow up some tanks, but then what? What plans do you have in place then? See, then you get into a disastrous quagmire, and then it all backfires on you. Well, that's just another further example of this. And when we were invading Iraq, we were promised it's just going to be easy. It's going to be a breeze. We're just going to destroy the Iraqi troops within a couple of weeks, and we're just going to walk through Iraq, and people will be showering us with flowers and roses and rainbows and butterflies, and then everything will just be peachy, right? I mean, this is just ludicrous. It's ludicrous. So learn your lessons from that and apply it to your own life, and notice where in your own life you do that. See, when you think that a situation is really going to be challenging, then you need to prepare. Then it's like, how do I gather my strategic resources? What kind of resource do I need? Do I need more money? Do I need to save up money? Do I need to save up energy? Do I need to read books? Do I need certain resources? Do I need to talk to some experts? Do I need to get some legal advice? What do I need? See? Do I need to allocate time? Do I need to clear out my schedule? Do I need to stop watching TV and smoking pot and eating pizza? All these become important considerations when you're really serious about understanding the full consequences of a big goal. Because what we're really talking about here is, I have a giant goal for my life. I want this thing here, or this amazing thing here. I want enlightenment. I want a great marriage. I want a PhD education. Okay, fine. Yeah, you want that, but are you willing to work for it? Are you going to put the right strategies in place? That's mostly the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, is that unsuccessful people, they have big dreams, but they're very sloppy with their follow-through and with their strategy and with their expectations. It all begins with wrong expectations. By the way, why experts and experience is so valued in business? So, for example, if you're looking at job posts on monster.com or some kind of resume website, right, where they're asking you for your resumes, you're trying to apply for jobs, you know that some companies, they always value experience, and they always say, okay, we need a guy with 5 years of experience in this, or we need a girl with 20 years experience in this. And then, of course, they pay you appropriately for that. Why is that? It's not an accident. It's because an expert, someone who has lots of experience, can tell you what it really takes to succeed within some project or endeavor. And they can be relatively accurate about that. Whereas a noob will underestimate the situation by factors of 5 or 10 or 100. That's why noobs are dangerous. Noobs are dangerous in the military. Noobs are dangerous in government. Noobs are dangerous in every field of life. And if you're a noob at something, that's okay. Just all you need to really, to not make that a catastrophe is just to recognize that that your expectations could be really off the mark. And then you can take steps, which I'll tell you here in a minute, to how to correct that, how to avoid the biggest problems with being a noob. But that's why CEOs and military generals and scientists and engineers, all these people, they are valued by how many years of experience they have. Because it's through the brute force of experience where reality has slapped these people really hard. Before they were noobs, they got slapped. Now they become experts after years of doing this. Reality has robbed them of their fantasies and has allowed them to now fine-tune their expectation filter in their mind. So now that they set realistic expectations. Here's an example of this that is really good. Like, let's say you're building a house. If you go to an inexperienced architect and you have this dream for building your dream house, and you say, okay, I have $1 million to spend to build my dream house, and you plan all this out, you spend months architecting with him this dream house. A noob architect will go along with that whole procedure for you, and then try to build your house for you. Whereas if you go to an expert architect, the first thing he'll ask you is, okay, what's your budget? $1 million? Okay, tell me basically what you want or expect to be able to build for $1 million. And you tell him, well, I want a sauna and a hot spa, and I want a garden with koi fish, and I want this many acres of land, and I want big screen TVs, and I want 20 rooms. And the guy will tell you, no, that's going to cost you $5 million. Not $1 million, $5 million. Do you have $5 million? And you say, no, all I got is $2 million tops. Okay. So he'll say, then scrap your project because it's not going to happen. You're going to be in for a rude awakening. What's going to happen if you go through with this project is you're going to have a half-built house, which is then going to get foreclosed on in its half-built state. It's just going to be a ghost house because you're not going to be able to complete the whole thing. See, that's where an experienced architect is very good, because an experienced architect could put your expectations into line. And of course, you as the inventor of your dream house with no architecting experience, and maybe you've never built a dream house before in your life, of course, you have the most ridiculous expectations for what you think you can accomplish with $1 million. You're going to completely underestimate what it takes to build your dream house. It's probably going to take 5 times more than you think. And it's going to take a lot longer than you think, and a lot more planning. This is a very common, the reason I mentioned this dream house example, it's an extremely common area where people get blindsided. People who try to construct their own homes, the consistent story from them is that it takes 5 times more time, 5 times more money, and 5 times more hassle than they ever imagined it would take. Not to say you shouldn't do it, just to say have the right expectations. That's all we're talking about here. Managing your expectations is especially important for solo projects. If you're working in a big company, usually that corporation or organization will already have some experts who will temper your expectations. Of course, they're not perfect. A lot of times they're wrong. But when you're just working on yourself, by yourself on some project, like you want to start your own small business, your own blog, you want to, let's say, do some kind of art project, like you want to write a novel, you want to compose a music album, you want to shoot a documentary, you want to shoot a feature movie. In all those situations, you're doing like the little solo project sort of thing. Notice how easily people give up on their solo projects, extremely easily, because they have no other enforcement mechanisms. If you're working at a job with 100 people, there's a lot of pressure on you to perform there. Whereas when you're by yourself, it's so easy to quit and to give up, unless you're understanding the things that I'm talking about here. And of course, this is very true for consciousness work. So if you're trying to get enlightened, if you're doing self-inquiry, if you're doing meditation, if you're doing any kind of contemplation work, if you're just doing any shadow work on yourself, any kind of therapy work, whatever, yoga, all this stuff, these are like solo projects that you're doing for the most part. You have to really manage your expectations. The scope of your projects must match your will and your resources. And this is why I like to shock people sometimes with harsh examples of how long it takes to accomplish some of the stuff that can be accomplished with personal development. For example, I commonly say that enlightenment takes 1,000 hours plus. And I get criticism from this, especially from enlightened people. They would criticize me. They'll write me little clever comments saying, "Oh, Leo, you're misleading people, telling them that enlightenment takes 1,000 hours plus. What nonsense is this? What book did you read this from?" Well, you got to understand my perspective and also the audience that I'm speaking to when I say that. Yes, technically enlightenment doesn't have to happen in 1,000 hours. It can happen right now, in 5 minutes. And that's what they'll tell you. "Oh, you're already enlightened. In 5 minutes, you can just realize it. It's so easy." That's only half the perspective. That's really coming from the enlightened perspective. Yeah, once you're enlightened, it's super easy. But that doesn't help a noob. What a noob needs to hear is they need to hear the reality. They need their expectations properly set. And the fact is that if you do a statistical analysis of all the people who do meditation and who become enlightened through whatever means, I mean, I haven't done this, so I don't know, but I'm willing to bet good money that it would be 1,000 hours plus to get enlightened. That's just a fact. And the reason I like to cite that fact, even though sometimes it makes enlightenment look a little daunting, like, "Oh, 1,000 hours, Leo, why do you make it look so challenging?" Because the greatest danger with doing enlightenment work is false expectations. It's thinking that enlightenment is just like this flimsy little thing. It's like, "Oh, enlightenment." People think that, they hear about enlightenment, and then they expect that they will attain immortality and realize the nature of all of God and all of reality in all of its infinity, that they'll just realize that over one weekend. Give me a fucking break. People have devoted their entire lifetimes to this. That's how deep of a pursuit this is. People have pursued this for 20, 30, 40 years, like a full-time job. And you think you're going to do it in one weekend, in 5 minutes? Give me a fucking break. That's a totally wrong expectation to set to people. When you give that people that expectation, which is what a lot of the neo-Advaitins do, which is some of the criticism I have against people like Eckhart Tolle and so forth, who, I mean, their teachings are totally valid, but when you're mainstreaming enlightenment like that, what you got to do is you got to hide the fact that it takes 1,000 hours. Because nobody fucking wants to hear that, you see? And that's a general trend within our culture. And that's a general reason why I like to cite these sort of high figures, because I like to be conservative and I like to set your expectations properly. That's a rare thing, because every single marketing course will tell you and teach you to mislead your customers' expectations. We do this as a culture, and marketing is very terrible. This is a very negative influence. It leaves people unable to pursue mastery and to self-actualize or to go off and achieve success. This is a very big problem. See, because what marketing does is it exploits your false expectations. Because good marketers know that the easiest way to sell you a bunch of crap and to earn a lot of money for themselves is by convincing you that the thing they're selling you is quick, easy, and emotionally effortless, and that you can just pay some money, you can be completely brain dead, you don't have to do any kind of critical thinking, and they'll just give you a solution, and you're done, and you can forget about your problem. Because that's the easiest way to sell to people. If I offer you that kind of magic pill solution, you're going to buy whatever I'm selling. Now, of course, you're probably going to be disappointed when you realize that life doesn't work this way, and you cannot become a successful, self-actualizing, conscious human being through this sort of process. And this is a very negative influence that marketing has on our culture. It might be more negative of an influence than religion has on our culture. You know, a lot of scientific and atheistic people say, "Oh, well, religion's such a negative influence on our culture." What about marketing? What about commerce? It's such a misleading force. And it's really hard to even run a business. It's hard to even sell self-help products and information when you are honest with people about what it takes for them to then get the results that you can get. And people can get some amazing results from self-actualization and consciousness work and meditation, but they are constantly misled and lied to about what it really takes to do that. Constantly. Because they know that if you're told the truth, you won't do it. Now, a case could be made that, hey, Leo, it actually is a good idea to lie to people about how long it takes to get enlightened and how much work it takes, because if they knew up front, they would never even start. So we got to trick them into it. Well, you could make that case. I mean, if you want to teach enlightenment in that fashion, okay, that would be your approach. I personally don't like that approach. I'd rather be more straightforward with people about it. Because I think that if I set false expectations, a lot of people will fail. Now, of course, people can criticize me and say, well, but Leo, you're setting very conservative expectations and you're making it sound so hard and so difficult that no one's even going to do it. And therefore, you're going to scare a lot of people off. Yeah, that's some of the pros and cons of these different approaches to teaching in different ways. That's why different teachers have different styles of teaching, because they resonate with different pros and cons. And I'm not particularly saying that my method is the one true best method. I'm just saying that this is one that I have sort of favored for my own reasons, because this is kind of how I like to be taught, how I like to learn personal development. I personally find it very offensive and highly unethical when people teach me something, but then withhold the real effort that it takes to accomplish the results that they are talking about in their advertising. So in their advertising, they will always talk about, oh, look at this woman who lost 100 pounds eating our Subway sandwiches or whatever. Or it's like, oh, look at this person who's made $1 million doing our marketing scheme, our affiliate pyramid marketing scheme. You see, oh, look at this person like Eckhart Tolle. He just got enlightened overnight. One thing happened and bam, he got enlightened. But these, I don't even care about these kinds of examples because these are exceptions. You can't base a sound life strategy on these kinds of examples. These are freaks. These are accidents. You base your life strategy on the averages. What I'm interested from a marketer, if a marketer was really honest, he would say, here are 1,000 of my customers. And out of 1,000 of my customers, to get the result that I'm promising here, the average was that they put in 1,000 hours of work. That would be honest. That would be honest marketing. But of course, nobody does that. They do the exact opposite of that. It's highly misleading. So when I talk about business, for example, I often am conservative with the expectations that I try to set for you for your business. I tell you, think 3-5 years down the road. It might take you that long just to get it going. Or when I talk about life purpose, I talk about in 5 or 10 year time frames where it's like, think about your life purpose 5-10 years down the road, not 1 year down the road. Because in 1 year, even though you can get good results in 1 year, it's just the wrong expectation. It's the wrong time frame. And it leads to failure. It's just really as simple as that. And it contributes to this culture that we have, this kind of get-rich-quick mentality, which I hate. I just hate this mentality. And what I hate the most is how much it is employed within personal development, which is the most disgusting and unethical thing I think that personal development as an industry does, is that it employs these sleazy tactics, the low consciousness tactics that exist everywhere else, and they are somewhat understandable. If a low consciousness tactic is used to market some Wall Street product to me, like a stock or something, I can understand that. Wall Street is all about low consciousness earning money. But when it's marketed by a self-help guru or by an enlightened master or by a meditation teacher, that's to me that's so out of integrity with what this work is really about. You have to realize that our minds are lazy. Your mind is lazy. And therefore, what that means is that we will constantly underestimate the costs of our projects, the timelines, the schedules. We get cocky about these things. We get cocky about entering into wars. We get cocky about how to make big, significant changes in our lives, which is not to say that these things necessarily have to be hard or take long. Just have realistic expectations. I see that one of my jobs in this whole process of guiding you in this field of self-actualization is to correct your expectations based on all the research that I do. Now, how do you set the right expectations for yourself? It's actually quite simple. There's just a couple of steps you need to do, which newbies don't do. And they're very common sense steps. So number one, do research into the thing you're trying to succeed at. Whether you're trying to build a house or a great marriage or anything else, or get enlightened, do the research. Study the people who have already succeeded in these fields, in these like-minded projects and endeavors, and just see what it took them. Get fascinated about the behind the scenes of everything in life, and especially the stuff you're trying to succeed at. So what I mean by behind the scenes is, one of the things I used to love, I don't watch movies that much anymore, but when I used to watch a lot of TV and especially DVD movies and stuff, I would love to get a DVD movie, and then more than the movie, I would love to watch the making of the movie. Maybe you can resonate with that. It's amazing. I would get more enjoyment watching the making of, looking behind the scenes. How is the movie actually made? Like I remember watching the behind the scenes of James Cameron's Avatar or George Lucas's Star Wars. Like that's infinitely fascinating to me. I would actually buy books about Star Wars. I would read in detail. How did George Lucas write the script? Where did the stories come from? Where did all his ideas come from? What are all his sources? And it's just amazing to study that. So how did it all come together? What were the business aspects of putting together Star Wars? It's a pretty crazy story of how it came together. It almost didn't come together. He had to go through hell to make that stuff work. It was really difficult. So when you read that, the reason the behind the scenes are so important to what I'm saying here, this is actually a tactic for you, for how to set right expectations, is because when you look behind the curtain at how the magic trick is achieved, you see all the guts of how the sausage is made. You see that process and you go, wow, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Oh, it's so much more work than I thought. And time and again, you discover this. If you study amazing musicians, amazing actors, or amazing business people, or amazing artists, you look at their process and you see that it's so much more work than you ever thought it was to produce that little thing. Because when you see a nicely polished movie on the theater screen, it's only like 90-minute movie, and you would think, well, how hard could it be to make a 90-minute movie? It's just 90 minutes. I mean, if you divide the 90 minutes into seconds, it's only like 1,000 seconds or something. It's not that much. And then, you think like, well, how much can a second of movie cost? Does it really cost $1 million? But then when you take into account a budget of a movie like Avatar, which I think had a budget of like over $100 million, you see that, and then divide that by how many seconds the film is, and then you get a sense of how many millions of dollars a single second of film footage costs. It's absurd, right? It's like, whoa, I never thought it was like that. And then you get to see the process that these people go through. And that's very eye-opening. And then that aligns your expectations properly. So I always encourage you to go out there and study all the people that you admire. Get down and nitty-gritty into their process. See what they actually had to do to succeed. Our culture presents very false notions of how they succeeded. Oftentimes, our culture makes it look easy. Read biographies too. This is also important. When you read biographies of successful people, you learn also sort of the guts of what it took for them to do what they did. Their thought process, what kind of plans they made, their attitude, and their problems with money, their problems with handling logistics. That's all very important stuff. How do they persevere? A lot of biographies talk about perseverance. They talk about fear. They talk about failure a lot. And these are all things you got to learn if you want to become successful. Talk to experts. Don't just read the books, but actually try to go interview somebody in your field. Like you want to become a musician? Go interview a musician. You want to become a film director? Interview a film director. You want to become enlightened? Go interview an enlightened person. Talk to them. It doesn't have to be a formal interview. Just talk to them. Pick their brain. Ask them questions about the behind the scenes process. It's really amazing to take an enlightened master, sit down with them, and then ask them, okay, so tell me the guts of your journey. How did it really happen? Not the polished up version that you put on the back of your book, but how did it really happen? And then that really tells you, oh, okay, that's why it's so hard. Because fuck yeah, this guy spent like 10,000 hours in agony meditating, and now he's so damn enlightened. Well, of course. And of course, I'm not there yet because I haven't gone through that. I wasn't that hardcore. You see that these people who are deeply enlightened, they're very hardcore people. And then you're like, oh yeah, of course I didn't achieve enlightenment in 1 year or in 2 years of self-inquiry. Of course. Wrong expectations. Very importantly also to set the right expectations is to just, at some point you have to realize and give up this whole notion of quick fixes. Stop looking for quick fixes. Stop asking for freebies. I was at the supermarket the other day, just buying some food, doing my shopping, and I hear over the loudspeaker, some lady comes on, she says, attention all customers, right now we have some store special. If you go to the back of the store, we are giving out free gifts to people. Come get your free gift right now. And a bunch of people around me ran to the back of the store to get their free gifts. And I completely fucking ignored it and just went about contemplating whatever. I think I was listening to actually some audiobook or something. I was listening to my audiobook. I just kept listening to it. It didn't even cross my mind to fucking go there. But because I needed some bananas, I had to go through that part of the store anyways. So I just went there to grab my bananas, not to get some freebie. And then of course I know what the game is, right? The game is that they get you to come there to get their freebies, but then of course they pitch you on some other stupid shit. And the freebie they give you is not something you even need. All those people that were getting those stupid $1 freebies or whatever, they just got suckered. Suckered into standing there and wasting their time and their mental energy listening to this marketing pitch for a stupid freebie. It's because people have this mentality of quick fixes. I don't want quick fixes. I don't want anybody to fix anything for me. I don't want it to be easy. That's an attitude I've cultivated, almost to a neurotic degree, where sometimes people do actually offer me freebies and stuff, and I just say no, when actually the freebie could have been helpful to me. So in a sense, maybe I've gone too much in the opposite direction. But I see most people are just like, they're clipping coupons and shit. This whole coupon clipping mentality, just from a very pragmatic, common sense perspective, if a business is offering you freebies, why is it doing that? Is it doing that to be nice to you? No. When a business offers you freebies, it's because they're earning more on the freebie from you than you are from getting that freebie. You see how it fucking works? So, generally speaking, whenever you get those kind of offers, just ignore them. Focus on what you're doing in your life. Focus on your life purpose. Focus on your meditation practices. Focus on the shit that you can control, not what other people hand out to you. And lastly, how do you set right expectations? Make conservative estimates. Someone on the forum, on the Actualized forum, asked me, there's a long thread there with personal questions that people ask me. And somebody asked me, Leo, in one of your past videos, you talked about your own life and you said that you expect to live till you're like 60 years old. And then the question was, why did you say 60 years? Why are you saying that you're going to only live to 60? Most people live to 70 or beyond. Because I'm making a conservative estimate. You see, the problem with most people is that they assume that they're going to live forever and that they have all the time in the world to accomplish all their dreams. And I know that that's a trap, so I counteract that by making conservative estimates. So when I think of myself that I'm going to live for 60 years, okay, hey, that tells me I'm already past the halfway mark. I'm 32. Past the halfway mark. That gets me into action. Because I don't want to be 59 and and then still have a bunch of shit that I want to accomplish in my life. You see? And also because I know that when I'm going to be 60, I'm going to have less energy. I'm going to have less mental capacity. I'm going to have more diseases and medical conditions. I might be alive, but I might not be able to think or to walk by that point. See? So yeah, people live till like what? They're 77 or something. That's roughly the average, I think, in the United States. Average lifespan is like 75, 77, something like that. But you got to wonder what condition are those people in after, let's say, they're 65? Are they really doing anything with their life? Most of them aren't. Many of them are in wheelchairs, can barely walk, in nursing homes, in hospital beds. So, I mean, by that point, you don't really have much life left. You're just sort of like just hanging on by that point. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be that way. If you have a good diet and good exercise and take care of yourself and you're a bit lucky, then you can push way past that and you can be very active even in your 70s and so forth. So I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying set some conservative estimates so that, hey, when I get to 60 or to 70 and I'm still alive and I'm still kicking and I'm still active and I still have energy and I'm not in a hospital bed hooked up to some IV thing, then I can be pleasantly surprised. I can be happy about that. I can really enjoy that. I'd rather undershoot with my estimates than overshoot. Because imagine you think you're going to live till 80 and then tomorrow you get in a car crash and you're going to be lying in your hospital bed for the rest of your life. That happens too. So be careful. A lot of people die in car crashes. A lot of people have heart attacks. A lot of people have brain disorders. Now, it's important that you don't take everything that I'm saying in this episode as meaning that you now need to set low expectations and to not dream big. I'm a big advocate of dreaming big, but in a realistic way, with the understanding that a big dream requires big strategy and big planning. The bigger your dreams, the more realistic and pragmatic you have to be. Realistic doesn't mean your dreams have to be low and small and like everyone else's. It just means that you recognize that to make a big dream real takes a lot of work and you got to take it very seriously. It's not a flimsy thing. Get truthful about what it's going to cost you. And then really ask yourself, are you willing to pay that cost? And balance out your optimism and idealism with realism and pragmatism. This is another example where balance in personal development and in life in general is so critical, striking this dynamic balance between the two. And I can't tell you exactly how to strike that balance because for that you need lots of experience. Lots of experience in your domain that you're trying to master, lots of experience in your life to find out what's too optimistic and then what's too realistic in the sense that, see, if you're too realistic, the problem with that is that then you underestimate what you're able to accomplish. So if you look out and you see that everyone else is taking 10 years to become enlightened, you say, well, it's going to take me 10 years, and then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So don't let it limit you, is the point. That's subtle. That's subtle. How do I teach that to you? I don't know. I'd have to do a mind meld with you. You'd have to suck in all my life experiences from my mind into your mind to do that. So unfortunately, it doesn't work. That's why you need to put this stuff into practice. And then through trial and error, through the mastery process, you yourself will become an expert in the areas that you need to become an expert at and in life, generally speaking. Now, the last question that I want to address here is some people might think, but Leo, what about this idea of having no expectations? So it sounds like what you're saying here is rather than idealistic expectations, I should have realistic expectations. But what about the possibility of no expectations at all? Might not that be better? That's an interesting question. I think if you're an advanced practitioner of personal development and consciousness work, maybe you've had an enlightenment experience or two, then you might be leaning towards this idea of like, well, how about I just approach my next project with no expectations at all, with sort of a blank Zen mind? That could be a valid strategy. Although I still think that you can get into trouble there. I think that for most people that wouldn't work, simply because it's very hard to have no expectations. You need some serious spiritual practice to get to that point in the first place. So for most people, it definitely won't work as a strategy. But then even if you get to this place of no expectations, I'm just trying to imagine, like, how would that work if I'm trying to build like a serious project, like a skyscraper or a big software development project? Could I really have no expectations when I start a business? Or I want to construct a house with no expectations? I don't see that approach would work, because you need to budget. You need to plan your energy, your time, your resources. You would need to have at least a rough idea of how long it's going to take you to accomplish this project. Because if you literally have no expectations, that sort of means that you don't know whether it's going to take you like a month to build your house or 10 years to build your house, and you're cool with it either way. Now, I mean, maybe you can get so zen that you don't give a shit if it takes you a month or a year or 10 years to build your house. But I think the real world will just make that impractical. Because if it takes 10 years to build your house, well, it's just not going to work for you. I think your project will just probably fail. So I think that even if you get this Zen attitude, you still need to study specifically the kind of expectations that are realistic in the domains where you are trying to manipulate reality and create the kind of result you want. See, success is different from Zen. Zen is about accessing existential truths and absolute reality. And then the game of success is all about manipulating reality. And if you want to successfully manipulate your reality, then you got to play by those rules. And you're going to have to plan and to strategize. All right, that's it. I hope I've convinced you the importance of expectations, and that you take this to heart and start to realign some expectations you might have, especially when it comes to self-actualization, to Actualized.org, and to maybe your psychedelic experiences, and also to all your enlightenment and meditation practices. All right, I'm out of here. Please click the like button for me. Post your comments down below. Share this episode with a friend. And lastly, come check out Actualized.org right here, my website. I've got a forum on there where you can ask questions and get help for your problems. My blog that I'm updating quite often these days and putting some cool insights on. And life purpose course is there, book list is there, and more resources to come in the future. So stay tuned and stick around for more episodes.